Now from WATN, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome to Local 24 This Week. I am Richard Ransom. In the Mid-South, there's never a shortage of stories every week, and that's why we're here on Sundays to give you the real story behind the big stories. And here are our topics for today. First up, school vouchers. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee's controversial plan to allow public tax dollars for private schools moving fast in the state legislature. Many think this may be the year. Now, some unlikely opposition from public school systems in Collierville and Germantown. What's really going on? Blue Suede Brigade, Local 24 News breaking the story this week of a class action lawsuit alleging this tour guide program downtown has become more of a glorified police force. And the Memphis City Council's trip to Chattanooga to tour the TVA, MLGW went along as well, all during the same week that the TVA finally announced what it will do with that dangerous coal ash pond in southwest Memphis. My panelists, Otis Sanford and the CA's Ryan Poe, will be here soon. But first, we're pleased to have Memphis Congressman Steve Cohen here to go one-on-one about as many questions as I can possibly cram in the next nine and a half minutes, Congressman. Thanks so much for being with us today.
The lightning
we appreciate
round.
it. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's start with, I think, the obvious question, and that is the Mueller report. Poll out just today as we record this on a Friday afternoon says 80% of Americans want to see the full report. That includes a lot of Trump supporters. We're also hearing that the promise is being made that we'll see it by mid-April. What is your level of optimism that we are going to see the full report? And if not, what does Congress have to do to make it happen, if anything?
I don't think we'll see the full report because I don't think Barr, as an agent of Trump, wants us to see that full report. It'll be redacted. There are reasons to redact possible sources and methods on the counterintelligence portion, and I understand that. But on the questions of grand jury testimony, that could be seen if a judge allowed it. Mr. Nadler, the chairman of the judiciary, went to Barr and asked him to join with us in asking the judge to allow that to be published. Barr says he will not do that. So he wants to use that as a way to get the grand jury testimony taken away from the American people's eyes. And the other question is executive privilege, and he's letting the White House see it and determine what they think is executive privilege. Even though they waived executive privilege on the front end, now they're asserting it, which I don't know they should legally be able to do. All this will end up in court. I suspect we'll get the expurgated edition.
Real quick, I don't want to turn this question into a civics lesson, but what's different this time? I don't remember Janet Reno inserting herself when the report was issued from a special counsel against Bill Clinton, or same with the Iran-Contra affair. I mean, name the different investigations along the way in which there has been some special counsel. Why is this one different? Why is the Attorney General even able to insert himself?
It's never happened before. There's only been one other special counsel, and that was on Waco. There were two independent prosecutors under those laws, those different laws, and those were Ken Starr and Watergate. And neither Jaworski nor Janet Reno nor any of the other attorney generals jumped in the breach to give their opinion over what the investigation said, because it was really intended to be for Congress. The president cannot be, according to Justice Department regulations, indicted for a crime. So if he can't be indicted for a crime, the only recourse, and that was what was discussed in the Constitutional Convention, George Mason said what should happen, and James Madison said the recourse is impeachment. So the only arbiters of impeachment is the Congress. So the Congress should have the full report to decide what should happen, if anything. And so the Attorney General should not have jumped in. But Bill Barr, in my opinion, was appointed by President Trump with assurances from either third parties or from him that he would take care of President Trump. And that's just what he did.
Well, we all know, if you've lived in Memphis any period of time, how you feel about this president.
Yes.
But Republicans are critical of that, as I'm sure won't surprise you. They say when you introduce articles of impeachment, as you've done, you advocate for eliminating the Electoral College, that creates the kind of polarization and tribalism that creates what Americans don't like to see, and that is just this division that we're seeing. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, I think, I don't like Donald Trump, but I didn't think Sidney Schlinker was a good guy. I had certain problems with Dana Kirk, and there are a few other people, and I think they fit in the same ballpark. And I don't think that a person who said what he has about women, the way he's decried Muslims, the way he has said that good people, fine people were on both sides in Charlottesville, neo-Nazis and Klansmen, deserves my
But you do more
respect.
than your vocal criticism is one thing, but I think they talk about the introduction of legislation as a step too far. But
I was proud of introducing the impeachment resolution. I was proud I had 17 co-sponsors. And I believe he has violated the Emoluments Clause, and we'll study that in my subcommittee, Constitution, Civil Liberties, and Civil Rights. He should have come to Congress before he accepts any foreign dollars, and he's accepted monies at Trump Tower, at the Trump Hotel, and in all kind of business arrangements. We've really never had a president that didn't divest themselves of their business interests and just operate for the American public, and with their being the only trust relationship he had. This was going to happen immediately, and that's what he's doing, is he's basically benefiting financially from the office. But he's violated emoluments. I think he's abused his power in the way he's treated the press, the way he's talked about the press as being the enemies of the people and being evil and being fake news, the way he's attacked the judiciary, the judge who had his Trump University case that he settled for $25 million and said because he was Hispanic heritage.
You could go on and on.
Yeah, but the press, the judiciary, the abusive process, the Emoluments Clause, and I think obstruction. So I'm proud of that, and I did it after the Rubicon was crossed the Rubicon when he talked about fine people in Charlottesville. As representing a district that's 65% African American and being Jewish, I'm not going to stand by and allow a president to say neo-Nazis and Klansmen are fine people.
Let me ask you about the mayor's race, Memphis mayor's race. You made an endorsement of A.C. Wharton back in the last election. You know who's running so far, who's announced. Do you think you'll be making an endorsement this time?
Sometime in the future, I will.
What's your observation of the race so far?
It's too early to say, but I think I just met with Mayor Strickland, and we worked on some different issues together. I've worked with Tammy Sawyer, and I supported her for county commissioner.
Okay, but you're not prepared to say who that's going to be right here on this program?
No, it's too early.
Come on, Congressman. All right, very good. Well, let me ask you also about the race for president. Some congressmen and women have made endorsements on the Democratic side. As I look at the calendar, and I think a lot of folks at home may not appreciate this, Tennessee is going to be very important in this presidential contest.
Less than a year away.
March 3rd is Super Tuesday. We're one of 10 states, and the first group of states once we get past Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. So it could really be very important to have the endorsement of a Democratic congressman such as yourself. Are you being courted? And have you narrowed it down? Do you have anyone who's interesting to you at least?
They're all interesting to me. Most all of them are people I personally know and I'm friends with, I've served with, or in some capacity, many in the House. Beto O'Rourke announces tomorrow. I was his mentor when he entered Congress when he was a freshman. So I've got high regards for Beto. I've got high regards for Amy Klobuchar, who I'm friends with. I've got a great Jay Inslee's one of my pals. We work together and spend a lot of time together in Congress.
Are they asking you? Are there conversations?
There's some, but it's pretty early.
Okay, Elizabeth Warren, the only candidate who's actually been to Memphis since announcing her campaign. So we'll be interested to see what happens there. But you're going to make an endorsement, you think, at some point?
I'm going to take my time. I might just wait on and see what the district wants to do.
Okay.
We'll probably have, the super delegates, we won't get a vote in the first ballot, but we will on the second ballot. And I think it's important to see, because we've got Cory Booker's a good guy, and I've worked with him, and Kamala Harris is somebody I think the world of too. There are just so many candidates that it's kind of a mistake, I think, right now for me to get involved, because I have to work with whoever's going to win, and I want to work well with them.
Okay. With the time we have left, I've got to ask you about TVA. You came out this week and said that you wanted the TVA to speed up the process on this coal ash mess in southwest Memphis. They announced about the day later, I think very shortly, that they are going to at least remove the coal ash. Is that enough for you? The timetable doesn't seem to be really speeding up in what we've seen so far from TVA.
No, it's been a couple of years that they've known about it. They've done nothing. They're still talking about more kind of studies rather than just taking action. And they say it's going to take 20 years. That's a long, long time. And I don't know if TVA will be here in 20 years.
Well, let me ask you about it. MLGW considering whether there might be a cheaper energy source that could provide savings to customers here of $400 million. We're going to talk about this later. It could be a game changer for this community. I've got 15 seconds. Do you support MLGW looking at other options for cheaper energy?
I support them looking at it, and I support them changing. There are 3 different independent studies. All say that the city could save about $400 million a year. We have a lot of poor people who spend a lot of their budget on energy. It's too much. They could save a ton, and we need to look at the energy burden of our constituents.
All right. Thank you, Congressman, for being here.
You're welcome, Richard.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Everyone who has ever lived has lived here. All of mankind's triumphs and failures. Every moment, every hometown, all here. We start our coverage on the ground and take it to the airwaves, so you always know what's happening in your own world and beyond. We are free TV and radio. We are breaking news. We are always there. We are broadcasters.
I do my best when I feel safe and inspired to learn.
I want my kids to have better opportunities than I had.
I wish we had classes like the schools across town.
I want to hold our elected officials accountable.
School boards transform communities. Speak up at yours and make your voice heard. Text SCHOOL to 225568 to find out how you can get involved.
Soldiers in the Army National Guard serve to give back to their country and communities. Their part-time commitment qualifies them for an array of benefits, such as affordable health and life insurance benefits, education benefits, including tuition assistance, student loan repayment and GI Bill programs, a retirement plan based on part-time service, and VA home mortgages. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about all the benefits available in the Army National Guard.
The experiences, the kind that take your breath away and remind you what it feels like to be alive. Catching a glimpse of life under the sea or on top of the world. Walking in the footsteps of soldiers, legends, and kings. It's a feeling, a connection that can only be made in Tennessee. Start planning at tnvacation.com.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome back to Local 24 This Week. Time to pick up the conversation now with my roundtable. Ryan Poe, the columnist for the 901 for the Commercial Appeal, is here. We also have Otis Sanford, Local 24's political analyst and commentator. I'm anxious to get your analysis and commentary on a couple of issues here, Otis. Let's first start with the school voucher issue, which made a lot of progress this week in the state legislature. Talk that this may actually happen now. This is Governor Bill Lee's signature legislation, I think it would be fair to say, as he starts his term as governor. So it passes the Education Committee. There was a very tense meeting in Nashville. Lots of Shelby County folks driving up there to express their opposition to the school vouchers. But now we have some new opposition that I think is creating an interesting situation here, because even though Collierville and Germantown school districts would not be immediately affected by this legislation because they don't have any failing schools per se, they are against this idea of school vouchers and the impact it could have on them. I think they're looking at the tea leaves, Otis, and not happy with what they see.
Well, certainly they are, because they say that even though they don't have any failing schools in their district, and certainly they don't, they have high achievement scores there, they are concerned about where this might lead to. I mean, I heard a quote, they have been opposed to this informally before. And I saw a quote where one school official said, you know, this is just like the camel getting the nose under the tent. Who knows what's going to happen later on? So that's why they are opposed to it. I think it's significant, Richard, because, again, this is pretty much driven by the Republicans, certainly driven by Bill Lee. And for a school district and a community like Collierville to be opposed to this, I think sends a message that maybe there needs to be some more debate about this in Nashville. I'm not totally sure now that this is headed for successful passage at this point.
So, and I understand that other suburban school districts where maybe the test scores are not an issue right now are also opposed to this statewide. Ryan, where do you think this is going? Because you do have Democrats like John DeBerry, who's kind of getting in hot water with his own party because he supports the legislation.
Yeah, and you have a lot of Republicans who are actually against the legislation.
That's right.
Governor Lee actually had to take the very unusual step of getting the party to step in and kind of work behind the scenes. And Speaker Glenn Cassida had to actually go to the committee himself and cast the first vote to kind of lead the way in this. So there's a very much of a behind-the-scenes push. Republicans are not, you know, all in line on this issue. So it's kind of up in the air. Already been some compromises on things like homeschooling, you know, whether that would fall under the umbrella of these ESAs, as they're called. And I think it's interesting what the suburbs are bringing up, Otis. There's a lot of
legitimate questions about how spending public dollars in this way.
That's exactly right. They brought up issues such as, private schools don't have to report achievement test scores. They brought up the fact that private schools don't have to adhere to the state open meetings and open records laws. Well, that's a problem here because if you have taxpayer money going to any entity, the law is clear, and that law was based on something that the News Commercial Appeal fought years ago with the daycare industry. When you have another source that's a private source, but getting public dollars, that private source has to adhere to state laws. And so that is one of just two of the, I think, 4 or 5 concerns that Germantown's Germantown School District is raising here, because these private schools don't have to adhere to any of these state regulations.
Yep, all right, go ahead.
There is a lot of, just from the private school, you saw this, the homeschool families were against this too, because they just really hate that idea that the state is going to get involved in their business. I think private schools especially are worried about that. Also, this bill is currently, in its current form, would allow parents, wherever they are in the state, to take those vouchers to the schools of their choice.
That's right.
So that was one of the whole reasons that Germantown and Collierville and all these other suburban school districts created their school districts separate from Shelby County in the first place, was because they wanted their own system. If people can take the vouchers and come in from out, that kind of defeats the whole purpose.
So what they're thinking about in Collierville and Bartlett and Germantown is, well, this could really bite us, because now our taxpayers might be able to choose, I'd like to have my property tax stipend, $7,300 or whatever, go toward my kids' private school tuition somewhere. So lots of questions for sure being raised by this. I want to get on to the Blue Suede Brigade. Local 24 News with an investigative piece this week by Jenny DiPrizio, which there was a federal class action lawsuit filed questioning whether the tourism folks, which is really the role that the Blue Suede Brigade has traditionally had downtown, should really be issuing parking tickets, having cars towed, issuing summons, this kind of thing. Seems like a legitimate question. Otis, you first.
That's a legitimate question. These people are not commissioned police officers. They don't, what kind of authority could they and should they properly have to be issuing traffic? I never got one, but if I did get one, I would be fighting this tooth and nails in whatever court I could get to. This is really overstepping here, and kudos for Local 24 for bringing this up, because I just think this is way overreach here.
And look, if they get their way with this suit, not only do they want to stop the practice, but they want damages for all the folks. That's why it's class action. For anyone who's had their car towed, and we know what a pain that can be, the parking tickets they've paid, and maybe someone lost the job because their car was towed and they didn't get, you don't know how big this could end up being.
I think it's clearly overstepping. My question, though, is whether there is a way to do that, because you don't really want police officers going through all that training to be writing parking tickets. We've got PSTs, which are civilians who have been trained by the police who handle these wrecks and things. That's the right way to handle it. If you're going to have the police commission these guys to go write parking tickets, whatever, do it the right way. I don't think it was done the right way, though. So
absolutely,
we'll find out.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the TVA and MLGW, a couple of developments in that story, which we've been following here on this program, right after this.
Why wait to get Medicare coverage if you don't have to? Cigna HealthSpring is here for you right now. If you're turning 65 or have low income or recently lost coverage, you may be able to get a Medicare Advantage plan from Cigna HealthSpring. Call 1-866-623-5971 to learn more. There's no obligation. We offer plans with no monthly premiums and no primary doctor copays to help limit out-of-pocket costs. You can also get medical, dental, and prescription drug coverage all in one plan. With Cigna HealthSpring, you get more coverage at a low cost, plus a team to help guide you toward better health. Don't go another day without finding the coverage that's right for you. Call Cigna HealthSpring today at 1-866-623-5971. That's 1-866-623-5971. Cigna HealthSpring. Together, all the way.
Have both Medicare and Medicaid? we can help you get more health care coverage at no additional cost. WellCare health plans are designed to give extra benefits to people who have limited income or resources. Many of our plans combine Parts A and B, hospital and doctor coverage, and your prescription drug coverage into one plan at no extra cost. Take advantage of zero or low monthly plan premiums and zero or low copays. With a Medicare Advantage plan from WellCare, you get more benefits than with original Medicare. Plus, access to a large network of local and regional doctors and hospitals. Call now to talk about plan options. We can answer questions and help you enroll over the phone. Call 1-866-819-7963. That's 1-866-819-7963.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
All right, let's talk about coal ash now, which not a very sexy topic, but nonetheless it's an important one because coal ash leads to arsenic, which can go into the ground and can possibly threaten our water supply where our aquifer is located, and there are legitimate concerns about this. This ash that you see here is from an old power plant in southwest Memphis, and we learned this week after Congressman Cohen urged the TVA to get going on this and speed up its timetable, that it was within a day or two that the TVA came out and said, well, we have at least decided we're going to remove all the ash. Before they weren't sure were they going to cover it or do something else instead. Now we know at least they're going to try and remove it. But timetable, not much satisfaction there. It's going to be years, they said, before they really work out how they're going to do it.
And they don't know whether the ash will be moving underground in that period of time, is my understanding. I know they've said before that there is really no real danger of it reaching the main aquifer, which is where we get our drinking water, but they don't know that for sure.
Well, that story keeps changing. You know, that's been sitting there for years and years, and just a month or so ago, we learned, well, the clay layer that we thought was there isn't there.
It's not there anymore. That's right. That's right.
It's just a mess, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And they keep on, Congressman Cohen has said often that they're just kind of dragging their feet. TVA is dragging their feet. All the while, I think there's this growing apprehension to just what could happen. I think it was 20 years, they said, that it could take to remove all of that coal ash.
Yep.
And, you know, how long does it take for the water in the groundwater, to seep down into the aquifer? And I think there's a lot of concerns. Yes.
So we'll see what happens with that. Of course, we'll keep a close eye on it. But another development this week is we had some city council members, 3 of them go to Chattanooga and meet with the TVA. 2 of them flew, which had raised some eyebrows, because by the time you fly through Atlanta and get to Chattanooga, you could probably drive there just as fast. Worth Morgan did drive, and then 6 MLGW executives also made the trip in MLGW vans. But basically, they were supposedly there to learn about the operations of TVA and start to deal seriously with this question about, are there cheaper sources for energy and our main source of electricity than the TVA? Seems to me it's odd the first place you go to is the TVA. That one you should be pretty familiar with if you've been their customer for 80 years. But where do you think this is going, Ryan? What are you hearing?
You know, the latest I've heard is Jim Strickland, Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland, has kind of stepped into the picture. He's looking to explore other options, which is important. That's TVA has been very strongly against exploring any other options. Some council members have expressed concerns. MLGNW has certainly expressed a lot of concerns with exploring other power options. But if we do explore those other options, those can save us millions and millions of dollars.
So it didn't help that there's been 4 studies now, including one paid for by MLGW, concluding the savings could amount to $400 million a year, Otis.
Yeah,
that could be a game changer for the city.
And I don't know why more people aren't talking about this than there are. I do think it's very significant that Jim Strickland is taking the approach that he's taking now that Ryan mentioned. A lot of that is sort of steeped in politics, because obviously he wants to be visible and show a great deal of leadership right now because he's running for re-election. But I think that him getting involved in this and even raising the notion of exploring other options, and seriously exploring other options, to me, I think is a game changer here. And I think MLGNW needs to be, I don't know if they need to be worried, but they need to be on alert that this could actually happen somewhere down the line.
Why the resistance, do you think, from MLGW? It seems to me customers are first, or should be first. And if you do have, it's worth exploring at least to see, you know, is it legit and can we make this really work and take it more seriously than I feel like it is?
Well, I think it's big, and I've said this before, maybe you and I in private conversations, I think that there's a lot of political coziness between the TVA and MLGW. And so I think, and again, I have not talked to anybody directly at MLGW about why they are so resistant, other than they say all of these other studies and reports and ideas, including that Bellefonte nuclear plant, that was just pie in the sky and it wasn't realistic. We know what we have now. But I just think it's just too much coziness between TVA and MLGW.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I also think that there's MLGW is kind of a dinosaur in a way, and that's not no slight against them, but I do think that they are very used to how they've been doing things and do not want to change.
Comfort, and look, resistance to change is nothing new, whether we're talking about utilities or whatever it happens to be. Right. So we'll see where it goes, but the fact that the mayor's taking the lead, you see this as pushing.
I have not, I don't remember his predecessors being vocal at all about this. Ryan, you've been around here for a little while now. I don't remember A.C. Wharton taking any serious discussions about this, or Dr. Harrington for that regard. So again, having Jim Strickland, again, it's in an election year, so we got to be mindful of that. But the fact that he's making these kind of statements, I think, changes the conversation a little bit.
And I really think you saw that conversation begin with City Council. I think Council deserves a lot of credit for beginning this whole conversation.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll be right back to wrap things up.
After 30 years, we've learned that car crashes without a lot of visible property damage can cause serious injuries to the body. When someone is rammed from behind by a multi-ton steel vehicle, it does not take a significant crash to cause permanent damage. Disc herniations, disc bulges, nerve root impingement. These forever injuries can require hundreds of thousands of dollars in future medical care. We see it time and time again. If you've been in a car crash, call us at Pound Law, Morgan & Morgan, forthepeople.com.
There's something so real about living local, and I know without a doubt I'm not alone. And I'm loving living local. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Said I'm loving living local. Local 24 is always there for me. The Mid-South is where I love to be. Get along, run down the road. We got a long, long way to go. Scared to live, scared to die. We ain't perfect, but we try. Get along while we can. Always give love the upper hand. Paint a wall, learn to dance. Call your mom, buy a boat, sing a song, make a friend. Can't we all get along?
All of us here at Local 24 believe in the magic of storytelling.
Imagine a world where children didn't know the magic of books.
A world where there are no stories to take them on adventures to meet unexpected heroes.
That's why we're partnering with Disney Publishing to donate up to 1 million books to First Book.
And we're inviting everyone to join the 7th annual Magic of Storytelling campaign.
To learn more, go to www.magicofstorytelling.com or just go to our website, localmemphis.com.
Thanks for joining us this morning. We'll see you next week for Local 24 This Week.